Hello and welcome to the Undertaker and the Pastor podcast. I'm Pastor Jonathan Smith.
And I'm Undertaker Jeff Walker. Thank you
Jeff,
for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today as well, sir. So, Jeff, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was originally born in Tennessee. I've sang in some gospel groups throughout the years, and my main thing is I'm a funeral director. I work in King, North Carolina. That's how we met, actually, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's about it. That takes all my time. So, tell us about you.
All right. I'm Jonathan Smith. I'm the pastor of Community Baptist Church in Mooresville. I've been pastoring there for 5 years. I've been saved since I was 8 years old, so I've been saved now for 24 years. One of my main jobs is pastoring. My second main job is on a construction company, but I enjoy studying the Bible. And when we got hooked up with Jeff, me and Jeff discussed a lot about the Bible. And so one day Jeff had the idea that we should start a podcast, and here we are. So
here we are.
I'm looking forward to seeing where this podcast takes us.
Me too. We had some great discussions while you were here painting, so I think maybe other people could share from our vast knowledge.
Yes.
Disclaimer here that we don't know everything, and we're just sharing our opinions. So
I agree with that 100%. And we're not what I would call Baptist briders either. We don't only believe that Baptists are going to heaven. I have a strong Baptist background, but as I study the Bible, I realize that a lot of our doctrine in the Baptist church and in church in general isn't what we would consider Bible doctrine. In other words, it's opinionated.
Right.
And it's time that we as the church in general get back to being Bible believers and not opinion preachers.
And I have a Pentecostal background. I go to a Pentecostal church and, interdenominational church, which is Pentecostal based, but it's an interdenominational church. And so I have a different slant coming from that than the Baptist slant, but I'm gonna get Jonathan on my side soon. But we have a different views on some things, but we both agree that the Bible has been skewed and changed so much by the opinions of man that we need to get back to what God says. And that's been a lot of our talks and studies and things together.
Right. Jeff, what are some topics that you'd want to discuss in upcoming podcasts?
I think our first big one we were talking about is the dreaded subject of tithing.
Yes, I agree with that.
We're not going to have you send in any offerings.
No, but we'll take them if you want to send them in.
That's right. But we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about some doctrines and some things that the church has confused and caused a lot of dissension, and things that have caused many churches to split.
Yes. And I think Jeff is on board when I say this. We don't believe just certain parts of the Bible. We don't believe just certain parts of the Bible only pertain to us in this dispensation, but we believe the whole Bible. We believe the whole Bible pertains to us, and the whole Bible will continue to pertain to us till Jesus comes back.
Exactly.
And one thing that we have learned is to know and understand the context of the Bible which we're reading.
Correct. You can take anything out of context and make the Bible say anything you want to, but you have to read, and you have to also know some of the history and the times that it was written in too.
Yes. We will, in our future videos, we'll talk about our schedule and how we'll upload our podcast and We have not really talked
As
about
soon
that
as we
yet.
figure it out, we'll let you know.
Yes, and we're also waiting on a logo as well for our podcast, but we wanted to
Yes,
go
I'm
ahead and get
working on that
started.
one as we speak.
Yes. So, Jeff, where you want to go from here?
I don't know. You're the pastor. Where do you want to go?
Well, we can discuss something.
Well, I don't know. Let's talk some more about what we've got coming up, because I'm
Okay.
excited. I'm excited about the one for tithing. I think people are gonna see some things from us that they wouldn't really believe that we would believe, but especially you as a pastor. But I think we'll have some ideas, and we're going to talk about a lot of things at the church. And I'm excited for that. That's going to be starting with our probably second podcast. Some of the things that the church has caused some of the things that have caused dissension the most in churches. And we're going to, just to give a little teaser, we're gonna go there and talk about the King James version only, and we're going to talk about music.
Yeah. Also, I think we've also talked about the cancel culture that's in the church as well.
Yes.
Everybody wants to say cancel culture started in the world, but it didn't. It started in the church. I think another topic that we'll discuss is divorce and remarriage and preachers and deacons. I'm sure that we've all got an opinion on that. Again, it'll go back to context. Also, I know we've talked about, you mentioned music, we've talked about Bibles. We need to also talk about denominations. Because there's a lot of people that believes that if you're not a part of their denomination, then you're a heretic or you're this or you're that.
Right.
So there's a lot there to talk about as the cancel culture in the church. One of the biggest areas of cancel culture in the church too, and when you talk about this, is pastors. If you don't fit into their clique or their little kingdom, then you're canceled. And Jesus wasn't that way. Jesus, the only time you've seen the cancel culture in the Bible was with the scribes and the Pharisees. Jesus would sit in the temple with everybody.
Right.
So, and something else we need to talk about too is, and this is something that I think we've talked about in passing, is how we're going to approach the next generation and reach them for Christ. Because the cancel culture of the church has hurt the next generation. When I think about that, I think about, we've got a group of people that is against tattoos, but our next generation is covered in tattoos. And I don't have nothing wrong with tattoos. So I'm just saying it's not welcomed in a lot of the churches that we're around today. Interracial marriage is something else that we're seeing trouble with in churches. Used to, you didn't talk about that. Now it's prevalent. We have to talk about it. We have to discuss it.
And just as a point of reference, my church, I said, was interdenominational. We're also interracial. We have quite a few African Americans and Hispanics in our church, and that adds to our church, I think, because they have their backgrounds in worship. And we're also going to talk about the differences and why churches are still segregated between races, why that Baptist black churches and Baptist white churches, or any church, is separate, and they have their own church, and they don't intermingle.
And that's really sad, because Jesus didn't see color.
No.
He didn't care if you was a Jew, a Gentile. He didn't care if you was he didn't care if you was a Samaritan. He didn't care. He said, I
No.
come to reach and save all.
That's right.
And so why is our churches through the years have been segregated, but why are they still segregated? That's not right. I agree with you 100% on that.
Right.
So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks.
Oh yeah. And we're always coming up with something else that we've got enough things in our mind to keep this going for at least 10 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll be uploading our podcast on YouTube. for our video, and we'll also be doing a Spreaker podcast for those that don't like to watch videos. We'll be doing our podcast on Spreaker, which will allow us to be able to be downloaded on Amazon, Apple's podcast, Google Podcast, and all the major pretty much any place you get your podcast from. Our podcast will be available. I'll put a link on the bottom of this video to our Spreaker site.
Cool.
Spreaker's powered by iHeartRadio. Well, I'll try. I currently have a podcast called Just the Bible Will Do podcast, where I upload all of my Wednesday night Bible studies on it. And it's international now as we speak. So it's got a good base to it. So we're looking forward to that.
I have no other podcast, but I do have some little lotions and shampoos and stuff I got from the hotel a couple weeks ago that I'll be putting up for sale for just a small love gift.
Do they have healing power and all that in them, Jeff?
I won't go that far. I'm not Reverend Ike or anything here.
Reverend Ike. You got some snake oil you want to sell over there?
No, but I might need to take a drink of this miracle water.
One thing that me and Jeff listened to several hours of different preachers and different podcasts and different views on different issues. So if you have an issue you want us to discuss, feel free to contact us. Our email address, I'll post at the end of this video as well. You can email us that or leave a comment here on our YouTube channel where you watch this podcast, and we will do our best to get to it. It may not be in one podcast or two podcasts down the road, but we'll definitely get to it, and we'll keep you updated on what we're going to be talking about. That way, when you hear it, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, I requested this." And if you have input on something, give us some feedback, and we'll touch on it in the next podcast. Say, hey, I got some notes from the last podcast that we did, and we discussed XXXX. This person says XXXX.
Mm-hmm.
What do we believe? How do we feel about it? Mm-hmm. We are not here to argue the Bible.
No.
Me and Jeff are a lot alike in a lot of different areas when it comes to the Bible, but we're not here to argue the Bible or dispute the Bible. And me and Jeff even talked about, we'd love to have some different guests on our podcast so that we can get their viewpoints on different things. I know like a few months ago, I had D.R. Harrison come and preach at my church, and he's got some different viewpoints on some things, and good viewpoints from 99% of the part. I didn't hear anything that I really disagreed with. And, I'm glad to see there's a new version of preachers coming out that isn't afraid to preach what they truly believe.
And if you look at it, he was canceled too. He was part of that cancel culture by some of the people he was brought up around and saved with.
Yes, he was. And that's sad. You know, one thing I've learned about Baptist in general, and you probably say in the Pentecostal church, is that it is a dog-eat-dog group of people.
Mm-hmm.
No one in the Baptist church, if you fall, you're outcasted. If you sin, you're outcasted. And me and you talked about this earlier today on the phone, and I preached on this a couple weeks ago. Would we let Noah sit on our church pew today? Noah got drunk. Noah's son seen him naked. Would we want that on our church pew? Would we let Lot sit on our church pew, selling out his daughters in Sodom and Gomorrah to save the angels? Would we let Abraham sit on our church pew, knowing he had a baby with another woman? You know, would we let Samson lay his head in the lap of Delilah, committed suicide? You think about all of these things, all these people that God used that in the church. Yeah, David committed murder, committed adultery, and goes down in the Bible after a man after God's own heart. Yep. Peter denied Christ, cussed, and God used him on the day of Pentecost. So these people are the type of people that in the modern day Baptist church would be canceled
Yep.
because of their past, because of things that they've done present. One thing DR made mention of talking about the cancel culture in the church, he said, you ever notice when somebody sins in a church and they get right, the pastor says, now you tell the church everything you done. It ain't the church, it ain't up to the
Mm-hmm.
church to know everything that person's
Mm-mm.
done. When the prodigal son came back home, the prodigal's father didn't say, okay, well, tell the church or tell everybody here at the house what you done. No. The
Nope.
prodigal son, they knew he had sinned, but they knew he came back home and was sincere about it.
And they'll keep you at an arm's distance until you prove yourself to them that you're worthy to be back in their full graces.
Yes,
which is
sir.
wrong.
But another thing on that, Jeff, is you'll never get back to their full graces.
No, you're always a little bit, well, yeah, but he did that.
Right. You're always marked a little bit.
The Christian army is the only army that will shoot its own wounded.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's really sad.
Yeah.
And disappointing. If Jesus can forgive a person for the sins that they have committed, for the wrongs that they have done, for the mistakes that they made, then we should too.
That's true.
So,
and
that's my rant.
That's what keeps people out of the church, because grandma and grandpa went to this church and they did so and so, and they cast out so and so, and under church discipline or whatever they called it back then. And now they don't want to have anything to do with the church because the church wasn't being the church. They were being worldly and nosy because they were up in somebody else's business and wanted to punish them for something that they probably jealous that they couldn't do and get away with,
or something that they was already doing themselves.
Right. I've always heard that if a preacher preaches on one sin all the time, that's his pet sin that he's probably doing. So, of course, I haven't listened to you to hear how many sins you talk about in your sermons, but
well, I talk about several different ones.
Yeah.
But and you was talking about this pet sins. I know a preacher many years ago. We was in a revival meeting, and he kept talking about adultery. Well, in this revival meeting, they was taking up on those mega offerings, how they do in some of those meetings. They have revival meetings that their church can't afford, and they depend on every other church to fund it. And when they did that, this lady got up and donated all of these rings and jewelry. They were gold and had diamonds and all that. Well, that preacher bought those rings back. Well, come to find out on Sunday morning, she stood up and said he was having an affair, and all them rings and stuff that he bought out of the offering plate were ones he had given her. Yep. And that whole meeting, all he talked about was the sin of adultery. So you're exactly right. And the reason they do that, yes, and the reason they do that is to deflect what they're doing and to make themselves feel better.
And also, I remember when DR was at your church for your revival, he talked about preaching at a church and having the preacher call him into his office and saying that he needed to be saved, that he just realized under his conviction and his preaching that he had not been saved, been pastoring 20 years.
And it would surprise us how many preachers are preaching today that are lost.
Yeah.
How many singers are singing today that are lost?
Too many people go to theology school or doctrinal colleges to make a career. They don't care about it's just a job for them. It's just something they can do that's easy, they think.
That's exactly right. So they think it's a job for Sunday and Wednesday, if there is a Wednesday service, which a lot of churches are abandoning that. But if it's a Sunday and Wednesday job, but pastoring
or Sunday night, they're abandoning too.
Yes, they are. My church does not have Sunday night service, and if your church does, I'm not faulting you for that. It's a schedule that works best for our church. But, there's a lot of people out there today that thought that because they could do 3 they go to church 3 services a week, they're more spiritual than those that only go attend
Mm-hmm.
1 service a week. That doesn't make you more spiritual. That just means you
Mm-mm.
go to church more. What makes you more spiritual is how much you read your Bible at home, how much you pray at home, how much you worship at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
our home life has a lot more to do with our spirituality than our
It
church
sure
life.
does. It's like me, I have to work a lot of Sundays because of the
Mhm,
type of job I'm in, but
mhm,
it doesn't, I hope it doesn't mean I'm less spiritual because I study and listen to other pastors, and
mhm,
I always watch my pastor on live stream when we're not there.
mhm. And that's something I'm seeing a lot of churches abandon right now too is live stream. They're saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, we're abandoning the live stream because our people won't come to church." I wouldn't abandon live stream because you never know who you're gonna reach.
Right.
Um,
And if their
I
people
ha
don't want to come to church and use that as a substitute, there might be something wrong in the church that they would need to look at to see why they don't want to come.
exactly. And I was at my church the other day. Our church has a food pantry, and this lady came up, and I was doing some work around the church. This lady came up to me and she said, "You're the pastor here." I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She said, "I watch your live stream every service."
Wow.
And she said, "I never knew anything about the book of Revelation, and you're one of the first pastors I've heard teach through the book of Revelation." And I went back to my church and reported that back to my church because we just put in several $1,000s worth of equipment to bring our live stream up to date, and it's worth every bit of that. Just knowing that there's other people out there watching and listening to the word of God being taught correctly. Because I know me and you watch some live streams and we step back and we scratch our head and we're like,
Mm-hmm.
where in the name of God did they get that information
Yep,
from?
we sure do. We have several favorites that are entertaining for us.
And we don't watch them just to be critical. We're not a part of that
No,
IFB sermon clips junk on TikTok.
it's just
Uh,
very hard for us to believe that some people are at some of the things that some people that we know close to our homes are actually preaching, and people are listening to it because they have no foundation. So any wind of doctrine that comes along, they blow right with it.
mhm. And to be honest, Jeff, that's how the Antichrist is going to influence his people.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
He's going to have a
exactly.
smooth doctrine, and this crowd that sits on the church pew every week that doesn't know the Word of God for what it says is going
Mm-hmm.
to just get sucked right in, and that's
Mm-hmm.
going to create the spirit of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's
really
true.
sad.
And it amazes me people that and they go to church, but I had someone the other day, I was talking to him. Our church has been doing a Daniel fast, which means no bread, no meat, no sweets, just
Mhm,
water and seeds, fruits, and vegetables, just like Daniel did in the Bible.
mhm,
And we've been doing that. And I was telling him about it because he asked me why I wasn't eating. And I told him, and he said, and he was as serious as me and you. He said, but Daniel got ate by the lion. And it's funny, but then I got to thinking, he believes that, and he goes to a big IFB church,
mhm.
and that's sad.
Yeah, but I guarantee you that I don't know who you're talking about, but I guarantee you that same person has heard, "Oh, women shouldn't wear pants, men need
Oh
to
yeah.
cut their hair, people shouldn't wear shorts, you only sing traditional hymns in your church, you have 3 church services a week, you only preach out of the King James Bible," but he can't
Mm-hmm.
tell you why he believes any of that.
No, that's true. He's
And
just always done it.
yes, yes. And I said in my church the other Sunday, we've had a lot of issue preaching and not a lot of Bible preaching.
That's right.
We've got people that'll get up and preach on the world's issues, but they don't know what problems they have in their own church because they're more concerned about what's going on in the world than they are in the church.
That's right. And there are some things we need to be mindful of in the world, like Israel. That is a situation that we need to be mindful of because that's leading up to the rapture eventually. And
Yes.
that's all the Bible just playing out right there in front of our eyes.
Yes, sir. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
And the Bible says if you bless Israel, he'll bless you.
Yes, sir. And I believe that. I actually posted that today on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but
I didn't see that. I was a little busy in the doctor's office today.
Oh, yeah, I seen that on Facebook. I'm sorry you got some not so good news on that.
Well, thank you. That's
You're
all
welcome.
right. God's still in control.
He sure is. He sure is. So, you got any upcoming singings close by?
No, unless you're going to invite me to sing at your church again. I think I've got a little bit unclosed till the first of the year, I guess.
Well, I think you'll be coming sometime. I'm going to get with you off the record sometime in December because I know we got to get a ordination service under us as well.
Yep.
So if y'all don't know, Jeff Walker is performing my future wedding. It'll be in June or April. We ain't set the firm date yet.
You still haven't decided?
No.
Well, if she's smart, she'll run. You won't have to worry about it.
Jeff, you couldn't find no finer fella out there.
Well,
I mean, you were taken. I was the second best. I was the second best option.
Yeah. Well, I'm already married, so.
Yeah.
She's a good one. You have a good one there.
Yes. So, well, Jeff, you got anything else you want to talk about tonight, sir?
No, I think we've pretty much said enough, and we'll just wait and hit them with the heavy stuff next week.
That sounds good. I look forward to it, and thank you again for watching. I'm Pastor Jonathan Smith.
And I'm Undertaker Jeff Walker.
Keep looking up. Jesus is coming soon. Have a good day.